Hello, people. So I'm Tomer. I'm going to talk about Selenium IDE. I really didn't have a title for this, so anyway, just saying you have a great city flag, so I just popped it in there if you're from Chicago. Uh, yeah, you can clap yourself. uh, anyway, I landed like 2 days ago, and I really didn't practice my talk at all. And I was sitting in my room thinking about, like, I have to practice this. I'm not going to do a great talk if I don't practice it. But on the other hand, I'm like a huge procrastinator. So I ended up just watching YouTube videos of corgis. Yeah. So you could say that you're in for a treat. Uh, yeah. Anyway, I want to tell you a story about how I started using Selenium for the first time. We had this thing at school. Now, those aren't the real images. It was like in high school 7 years ago, so I had to make it up last night. Yeah. So they thought that it would be funny, like, to have the students pick the song for the end of the break. So they posted this poll online, and you know, I really wanted the song to be "I'll Be There for You" by Rembrandt, and so I voted for it. And then I refreshed, and I got this message, and I couldn't vote again. And I figured that they didn't want my student credentials to vote for it, so it either has to be my IP or a cookie. And then I figured out there was a cookie, and and I just automated this, and I voted like 300 times for Rembrandt. and, and that's what went on to be like the song for the entire year. So anyway, that's me. So I'm working on Selenium IDE alongside the amazing Dave. Maybe some of you know him for like Elemental Selenium and the internet. So he's a really amazing guy, and we're really loving working on Selenium IDE together. So anyway, whatever question that you have, either me or Dave will gladly help you out. So it's kind of a big title because I didn't know how could I condense this concept into a shorter title. But after a decade, we finally figured out exactly what's wrong with Selenium IDE. We kind of looked at great tools in the market, like things that developers use every day, and we figured out exactly that one thing that they all share in common. And we looked at Vim, Xcode, and even Microsoft's Word, and we came down to the realization that they all have dark mode. So anyway, the idea is not getting dark mode, but I'd love to have one. So just a little bit of stats. We've got over 3 million downloads ever, and that's only the Mozilla version of it. Chrome doesn't really let us get that stat. And we have 150,000 weekly users, that's Chrome and Firefox combined, and 1,000 daily installation, that's both of them combined. And other than that, we've got about 20,000 users still using the legacy IDE. And we expect that the better the new IDE is going to get, the lower that number is going to become. So anyway, regardless of what idea you have of the IDE now or before, still lots of people use it, and it's our job to make sure that that IDE is the best that it can be. So this is kind of a stage in the presentation where I bullshit you a little bit about stuff that happened when I was in 4th grade, I believe, of elementary school, if that. So basically, there was this thing called Selenium Core. I don't know if you've heard of it. And it was this JavaScript library that you would put alongside your application. It let you do tidbits of automation of your application. And then Shinya Kasatani took that, put that alongside a global event listener on the document, and then he was able to build locators to all the event targets, and on top of that, put like a little interface in Zool, and created the Selenium IDE. In time, it just became a huge success, because regardless of where you are in test automation, Selenium IDE enabled everyone. It enabled the manual testers to be able to automate their test, and enable the test automators to be able to quickly bootstrap a test suite by exporting it to code and adding that to their pre-existing suite. And also allowed developers to consume IDE test cases as bug reproducers. Anyway, present time caught on, and that's the best explanation I got out of the Mozilla documentation about this. But eventually, Mozilla decided to kill XBCOM type extension, which was the exact technology that the old IDE used. And it's a great decision for them as a browser, because that technology was filled with security vulnerabilities, while the standardized web extension was a lot more secure, and with the user's privacy and data protection in mind. So basically, we've noticed kind of like a pattern in how the IDE works. Yeah, somebody decides that he's really going to take that mission on him, and he's going to make a great IDE. And then everyone starts using it for a short while, and then it slowly deteriorates until the next person comes up and takes that. And we know that we don't want to continue that circle. And we want to break it into something new. Now, it's probably going to have some life cycle of sorts. No software is future-proof. But we know that we need to make something entirely different in order to make it good now. So it's really a great opportunity for us to rewrite Selenium IDE with newer concepts in mind. And that means that some decisions that were imposed by the old IDE that could not be reversed, we can now just, delete them and bring on new stuff. So first off, let me just thank Sidex. They've been able to take bits of the old IDE, and they've put them together with a web extension shell and got it working, the recorder and the playback. And they've kindly let us use their code base as like a base for the new Selenium IDE. So props to them. All right. So now it's my demo. Oh, that's soon. All right. So let's just. I want to start a new project. Yeah, I do. So I got this. No, that's wrong. I got this dummy app that I wrote because I didn't trust the internet in this conference. So basically, I've been given this set of credentials that should log me in, but they don't. So we're just gonna make sure that we've got a reproducing bug for this thing. That's a real issue. So we're gonna assert element not visible, not present. Yeah, that's the one. We're gonna make sure that the error isn't there. Let's just see. Now that should fail. All right, fails. I'm gonna save that. And now what we're gonna do? Let's say that I filed this bug, and then it got to like maybe I should wear a hat, and we go to the code and just fix it for just one moment. So that's my app. Now, I highly recommend you don't hire me to do your security. All right. So that's my password. Now, I guess that the fix is this. And let's test that again. Oh, wait. Do I have to? Let's do that. What? Shit. Oh no. Alright, let's see. Let's see if that works anyway. No. Oh no. Oh no. What am I gonna do? Alright, I've got the best idea. Just I'm gonna. Which directory is this? Public. Alright. Yeah, let's do that. Oh my god. No. Oh, I see. Come on. Okay. Where is the public directory? Look it. So here we go. Yeah, we're working. Anyway, if I get the internet, I can even show you something more cool. So I'm gonna copy over my demo. My demo. Is that how I saved it? Yeah. Oops, not yet. I'm gonna copy it over to tests, I believe. Yeah. And then I'm gonna say, so we fixed this bug, and I'm gonna be like, fixed my horrible bug that I should definitely be accountable for. I guess that's good. And we've added a test in, and I'm going to push that now. We'll get to that later. Oh yeah, I have internet. Yeah, so good. All right. So the theme is reinventing the IDE. And what we mean by that is that lots of the things that we have assumed to work in the previous IDE may no longer work or may change. And we keep that in mind alongside helping the users migrate to the new practices that we want to impose. And I just want to go over a few of those practices. So the first one is Locator Fallback. So when we record, maybe let me just show you. So when we record, you probably know this, we record like plenty of different locators, and you can pick which one is the primary one, and we'll try to use that, and we'll use that a few times, and if we see that the primary one, or the one that you manually put in, just consistently doesn't work, we're going to try and use the other ones that we've recorded, and we'll let you know if one of those actually succeeded so that you can fix your test later. Next up is plugins. Now that's a pretty complex one because the old IDE had two ways of extending itself. We'll get to that in a second. But the old IDE had a very strong ecosystem behind it, and it had a lot of plugins to help drive it and make it as good as it was. And unfortunately, we don't have a great ecosystem behind the IDE nowadays. And we want to make sure that everyone, no matter what he wants to do in the IDE, can succeed using it. So we've really pushing hard to have a rich standard library in the IDE in the forms of commands and locators to help any scenario pass without the need to go to any plugins. That being said, we do feel that there are use cases for plugins, and we'll get to that in a second. So first off, I don't know, how many of you know what user-extensions.js are? Oh, that's really good that only like 3 people know. So I'm still getting issues about that. And user-extensions.js is basically a file, a JavaScript file, that contained a lot of prototypical functions, and you would add that to the preferences in Selenium IDE. And what would happen is that the old IDE parsed that file, added those functions into its prototype so that you'd be able to add new functionality or override functionality in the IDE. That's problematic in an understatement. For 2 reasons, 2 main reasons. One of them is that that file is not version controlled whatsoever. You get this file from someone who tells you that's going to fire up your IDE, and you put that in, you don't know what it does, and then some things now work differently. And if you find a bug in there, and you don't know where to consume the fix for it, or even worse, you have a version of user extensions that make your tests pass, but then your colleague that sits right behind you has a different version of it, and it fails on his machine. And then you don't even know how to start merging those files. So anyway, that's gone. Moving on. Yeah. So commands, pretty straightforward, just adding commands to the IDE. And now I've said before that we want the IDE to have a very rich standard library. And that means that if you need a command that's pretty useful for any website whatsoever, then we'll gladly add that to the IDE. But we feel that there's a great use case for plugin-based commands. For example, if you have a service provider that you want to integrate with, maybe send some data over and get statistics, or another third-party library that you want to interact with while running your test cases, then that's a great opportunity for either that service provider or you to bring that plugin and be able to use that with the IDE. Now, the second one is that maybe your organization has an internal framework in which you build your front ends. And the way that the IDE clicks stuff is just not working for you. And you want to invent that click to work in your framework. So that's a great way to implement that. The other one is locators, newer locator strategies. And again, we believe that if you have found a locator strategy that we don't know, and it's amazing and it's going to create stable tests that never fail, then we want that in the IDE for everyone. But if you do have your framework and you have like maybe your application or your dev team has some sort of common practice in the way that they name their elements and in the way that they lay things down in the page, and you can leverage that to create more stable tests, then adding new locators to the IDE is a great way to leverage that. Now, that's coming soon. We're pretty far in the implementation of this. And that also means that when you record, you'd be able to record those strategies, and then they'll automatically be added according to your preference in the way that you want to then use them in Playback. Now, moving away from plugins, control flow or control structures. Now, you know them in languages as ifs, else's, whiles, and recursion. And it all started one day when a guy just filed an issue that cellblocks doesn't work for him anymore. And cellblocks used to be an old plugin for the old IDE that added exactly that. Ifs, whiles, fors, all of those stuff, added them to the IDE. And we figured that instead of just making the IDE pluggable in a way that somebody could create cellblocks to, or cellblocks TNG, we should just have that in the IDE. And it's better explained by examples. So you get the indentation. That's my favorite part in this one. Basically, in this example, we loop through. We kind of started an iterator of 1, and then we increment it every time until it's a 3, and we accept that. And a similar thing is going on with the if. Anyway, they can be nested. You can even, if you want to go far, far, far away, you can even call a test case from within a test case to kind of create recursion if that's your thing. So we just want to enable all kinds of use cases in the IDE, whatever works for you. Right. So the IDE, we haven't touched on how to use it in CI, but the idea is that if we give you the IDE that is just GUI that you can record and then play back, it's pretty much only gonna win you high school polls, and it won't really get you the job done in your work where you wanna make sure that you test for regression every time a new commit has been pushed. So we figured that since we know how the IDE works and how the file format is saved as, and how you recorded your tests, we can take all those assumptions and run them in the best way possible that we can assess. And what do I mean by that? So we've developed the Selenium side runner, which, depending on the way that you wrote your test cases, we can parallelize them for you for free. On the most basic level, we kind of put you in a path that you'd be able to parallelize all your suites out of the box. But if you want to take it one step further, you can even parallelize all your test cases as well. Other than that, you can pass base URL as parameters, so you can test in different CI environments or on your computers against different deployments of your application. Other than that, you got grid execution. It can either execute locally or remote, whatever it is that the basic, like the URL with the basic authentication has, it's going to connect to that. And it's configurable through the capabilities that you're used to from any driver. So you can either use that to remotely execute in Gecko driver or Chrome, or even locally without the grid. So bottom line, that's a test framework for Selenium IDE that you can use anywhere, on your machine or remotely. And we believe that that's going to give you that extra sauce, that you just recorded something and you just want to get it working in CI before messing with anything else. Now, it's interpreted using Node, and the reason we picked Node is because I like Node. Yeah. And secondly, Node is an interpreted runtime environment, which means that we can convert those test cases into JavaScript and then immediately execute them without the need to compile. So you don't need any compilation toolchain besides the actual Node runtime. And you get that through the Node package manager. We're planning on having a Docker image ready, so you can use that instead if you don't want Node on your machine. Although I can't really understand why wouldn't you want Node, but yeah. So I got a really cool demo for you. Now I call it really cool demo because it's experimental, and when I say experimental, I mean I wrote code last night to get this to work. So last night I was at dinner and I figured that it's 11 p.m. I should probably go to sleep. I speak tomorrow. I went to sleep. I woke up at 2 a.m. and then my day began. So I did that. Anyway, yeah, I want to leave. So I've got this other installation here. Right, those are all of our test cases that we checked that we didn't break most of the stuff. Right, so that's the test cases that we've saved before. Oh, I didn't save this. That's why it asked me if I want to leave. So the difference is, and if you look very, very carefully, it's actually running in Chrome driver, which is not working. Why is that? Did I stop the server? Oh yeah, I did. Let's do that again. Here we go. Yeah, die. Let's do that again. All right, let me do that again. So basically what's going on is that instead of running the playback inside the browser, we spawn a Chrome driver and we do it straight on WebDriver using the JavaScript bindings instead of the Selenium core, which was the way that Selenium IDE had been implemented for the past 15 years. Now that's pretty big. So playback on WebDrivers. That will basically mean that if the old IDE only worked on Firefox, and you could only play on Firefox, because Firefox was the only browser that the old Selenium IDE supported, you can now install Selenium IDE on either Firefox or Chrome, and soon you'll be able to play it back on any other browser from that installation. So you could record on the browser that you like and you prefer to work with, but you could test it on any other browser straight from the UI, which enables you better debugging abilities. So our roadmap. So WebDriver compatibility, we've discussed that. Now we've got export to languages. Now that's a thing that people ping me about every day. Some more than others. But we know that, and we're going to get to it, and we're going to do that too. Now, Simon kind of said in his keynote that he learned from his mistake of not giving any rough estimations or any estimations at all. So I'm going to do that too. It's going to be ready somewhere. Hopefully not 2 years late. So the next one is data-driven testing. So that's mostly for users who want to maybe upload the CSV to the IDE and iterate over that, or any other data source, and then have their script defined by that data source, then hard coded into the script itself. And lastly, we've got the impossible mission, because there's always going to be that one website that does weird stuff, and we're going to get an issue that, oh my God, Selenium IDE is not working anymore, and which is not working in that specific website. But yeah, so websites keep getting more and more complex. We keep seeing newer and newer front-end frameworks and libraries taking over server-rendered applications. And that only keeps making our job harder, and basically that's going to be like the impossible mission that we're always going to chase after. So I want to thank all the past maintainers of Selenium IDE. That's Shinya Kasatani, Adam Goucher. I don't know if he's here or if he just crashed after his talk. Samit. And I want to thank you all for coming and listening to me rambling on. Now, I'm pretty early, so if you have questions, I'll gladly answer them.
Are you willing to answer questions in the office hour room?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Tomer. That was fabulous. I